press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hello children, our discussion going on presently is biomolecules. This will be our second discussion with respect to biomolecules. So our last discussion was the classification of biomolecules, classification on the basis of the number of monosaccharide units obtained. So we have the classification in the form of monosaccharides, then we had oligosaccharides, we had polysaccharides. I give some examples with respect to those as well. Then on the basis of reducing and non-reducing sugars, on the basis of sugars and non-sugars, on the basis of the number of carbon atoms, trioses, tetroses, pentose, hexose, heptose, so on and so forth. So our discussion that starts today with the basic biomolecule, basic monosaccharide in the biomolecules is from glucose. And by experimental investigation, it was reached that its molecular formula is C6H12O6. With respect to its mass and other calculation, it is molecular equal to C6H12O6. So obviously the molecular mass will be 180 grams per mole. So 1 mole of glucose weighs how much? 180 grams. It's a basic thing that I'm talking. Now, how was the structure of glucose elucidated? The structure that we write for glucose today, that is an open and a closed structure. There are two structures we can draw for glucose, open and closed structures. How were those structures reached? First of all, when you look on glucose, on experimental investigations, its molecular formula comes C6H12O6 and molecular mass is 180 grams per mole. Also, when this glucose formula C6H12O6, when this glucose, I'll write down CHO, then CH2OH 4 times, then you got CH2OH. When this was treated with hydrogen iodide and heated, it was found out that N-hexane was obtained, indicating that in the glucose molecule, all carbon atoms are linearly arranged and carbon is linked to carbon respectively on treatment with hydrogen iodide. These are basic things that I am discussing with respect to glucose, because the chemical properties of hydrohalides we would have already done. How do they react out with the carbohydrate molecules, or how do they react with the alcohol and aldehyde containing groups, HI. This is one basic thing that we will understand over here, that it contains long carbons of 6 carbon long, which are held with each other by single bonds naturally. But from HI investigation, we came to know that carbon atoms are linked in a straight chain with each other. Yes, basic thing. Certain more important factors with respect to glucose, that is CHOR, that to find out whether carbonyl carbon is present or not in the present given molecule, because we already know carbohydrates contain a primary carbonyl carbon in the form of aldehyde or ketone. Whether this glucose molecule, not only glucose C6H12O6 containing formula, whether this glucose molecule or given molecule does contain carbonyl carbon or not, what was done is it was treated with hydroxylamine. That is, when glucose, so I'll write down again the molecule, CHO, it is treated with CH2OH 4 times, then you got CH2OH. When it was treated with hydroxylamine, NH2OH. Whenever you have carbonyl carbons, carbonyl carbon, or when you have carbonyl group present and you want its reaction to come into play, when this carbonyl carbon reacts with hydroxylamine NH2OH, it will result in the formation of oxime, and we know oxime structure is C double bond N, which is attached to OH, and this carbonyl carbon is attached to either hydrogens, R and H, or this can be attached to a ketone, and it can result in the formation of NOH. This is oxime formation. Remember that when the oximes are made, we can get geometrical isomerism. A new type of geometrical isomerism in oximes comes into play, which is based upon the presence of hydrogen and OH around C double bond N. Usually, geometrical isomerism is possible around C double bond C. It can also be possible around C double bond N, and it is as the link can show it here. And this linkage in between carbon and nitrogen, and around the carbon atom, there should be the presence of hydrogen and nitrogen in case of oximes. Naturally, when there is an oxime, carbon surrounded by hydrogen and OH. If both of these are present on the same side, we call this as zinc conformation. And if this COH double bond N and OH group, H and OH group, if they are present on opposite side, this is called as anti-structure. This is called as anti-geometrical isomer. So, with having cis and trans isomers in oximes, you can have the trans and cis isomerism in the form of zinc and anti, in which zinc will be the one in which H and OH is on the same side of a plane. You know that double bond, it will be a planar structure around double bond sp2 hybridized system. It will be a double bond. Having a double bond structure between the two, how it would look like? It will be like this: carbon double bonded to nitrogen. This is one side of plane, this is other side of plane, right? So if OH and H, I'll show molecule like this: C double bond N. If H and OH are on the same side, it's called as zinc. If H and OH are on the opposite side, it's called as anti. However, in ketone, when the oxime is made, there is no geometrical isomerism possible. In a ketone, there is no possibility of geometrical isomerism, because around the ketone, the groups present are R, C, R, double bond O. So you don't have H. Obviously, when the oxime will be made, it will be R, Cr, single bond N, and you will get OH. This is also oxime. However, if this is a simple ketone, then classifying simple ketone as zinc and anti is not possible. Then what exactly needs to be done? If it's a mixed ketone, means if this R group is, suppose, ethyl, and this R group is methyl. So with respect to methyl and ethyl, you have to mention whether it is zinc or not. It is with which group? Methyl. So with respect to methyl, it's which one? Zinc or anti? It is zinc. You can change it out, rotate it out, but around double bond rotation is not accessible or at all. So in general, children, geometrical isomerism is not exhibited when the carbon attached to the nitrogen in an oxime. Oxime is having the same groups. It doesn't have the mixed atoms at all. And simple zinc and anti configuration can be calculated or found out on the basis of H and OH around the double bond. Am I clear with the postulate here? Now, children, oxime formation is one of the properties which exhibits us, which tells us that carbonyl carbons are present, oxime formation. And when this molecule C6H12, that is glucose molecule, was treated with, when this glucose molecule was treated with hydroxylamine, we got oxime indicating the presence of carbonyl carbon. So the reaction indicating here is oxime formation. You know the mechanism how oximes are made? It's a very simple phenomena. Suppose, children, we got a group like this, CH3. I'm talking about how oximes are made. Oxime formation. We would have done it in carbonyl carbons easily, and we can have a look on it here also. So general recapitulation we can do. So we got CH3, and you have carbon, you have hydrogen, it is double bonded to oxygen. When it is interacting with hydroxylamine, that's NH2OH, we know nitrogen has a lone pair of electron. That lone pair of electron can come and attack on carbon, because carbonyl carbon will have always, when the reagent is coming for the bomb formation, carbonyl carbon will shift towards more electronegative oxygen. This makes it delta minus. Or on the whole, it makes it minus. This carbon becomes in presence of reagent plus. So it's an electromagnetic effect working here. Moment of pi electron cloud. So when nitrogen attaches carbon here, so structure wise, what we are getting here? We will get CH3. I'll make it basic. You will get C. Then you have hydrogen. What's the charge on this carbon? Plus. It has been donated electron from where? Nitrogen, which has attachment of what? 2 hydrogens attached to it, correct or not? And then this C is attached to double bond O. Then there is hydrogen of NH2 group, which is attached to OH. Now, by the donation of the electron pair from nitrogen to carbon, the charge on this nitrogen will be plus. Yes. So nitrogen becomes more electronegative, but it cannot withdraw electrons from oxygen. So it withdraws electrons from where? Hydrogen. So hydrogen, it's already in the form of what? Minus here. Hydrogen comes out in the form of a proton. Electron cloud goes on nitrogen. So the structure wise we will have CH3C. Then you have H here, which will be now linked to what? Nitrogen, which has again got a lone pair of electron because it has shifted what? Positive charge. Electron cloud between nitrogen, hydrogen moves towards nitrogen. Nitrogen gets an electron pair again. Again it is bonded to what? Hydrogen, and then bonded to what? OH. This proton has come out, right? So there is double bond O, single bond O. It will become OH. Am I clear? Now have a look. This nitrogen will have this one. Donates an electron pair in. Due to that, what will happen? This H plus will donate electrons back to the nitrogen system. What will this hydrogen come out as? Hydrogen comes out as H plus, which will combine with OH and result in the formation of water. So elimination of water occurs. Once water is eliminated, what's the structure we are getting here? CH3, you got carbon, you have hydrogen. Now there is a double bond between the two nitrogen, correct or not? This hydrogen has come out in the form of proton and made water molecule nitrogen. Now nitrogen is linked to what? OH. Valence is fulfilled or not? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carbon is fulfilled as well. This is the oxime structure that you are getting. This is the structure, this is the mechanism, how the interaction between hydroxylamine and carbon. So carbonyl carbon presence is important here. So the reaction of glucose, that is third one, reacts with NH2OH and also HCN. When it combines with HCN, it gives you the addition products in the form of cyanohydrin. And with NH2OH, it is giving you oxime. This confirms the presence of carbonyl carbon in glucose. So structure wise, if you draw it, children, it will be CHO, aldehydic part, CH2OH 4 times, then you have CH2OH. So if you treat this with what? NH2OH, you will get C. Then this is a group attached, CH2OH 4 times, and then CH2OH here. Then CHO and NH2OH, what's the link you are getting? CH, then link is between double bond N, you got OH. So around this, it can be in the form of zinc or Nt. Got it? Now then, if you treat this with HCN, around the double bond, mechanism is simple. C, double bond O, then the other chain is here. When you are adding HCN to it, so this is plus, this will be minus, Cn is minus, attacks here. So the molecule will be C, it is plus, attacks O minus, OH. These are basic chemical reaction that you would have done in mechanical process or mechanisms itself in organics. So C double bond O, you got carbon and positive charge here attached by what? Cn. So you got cyanohydrin molecules as well to carbon, OH and Cn are attached. So both of these reactions show that carbonyl carbon is indeed present. Now, how do we know that the carbonyl carbon which is present in the present molecule of glucose is an aldehyde? Remember that you can use Tollin's test or Fehling solution to determine it out, because aldehydes and ketones can be separated on the basis of that. But we have one monosaccharide carbohydrate which is fructose. Fructose's primary functional group is ketone. Still then, ketone and this glucose, that is glucose and fructose, you cannot use Benedict's test or Fehling solution, because you have Fehling solution A and B. Benedict's test, Benedict's solution or Fehling solution, one is with copper with citrate, one is copper with tartrate, right? And then you have ammonical silver, silver mirror test AgNH3, twice charge is plus, and when there is presence of aldehyde, the silver Ag plus is reduced to Ag, metallic silver. Now it's a basic reaction, it's happening in the basic medium itself. Glucose and fructose. Fructose contains functional group as ketone. Glucose contains functional group as aldehyde. So you could use silver mirror test to detect the two, but cannot be used because fructose at the end can undergo enolization. Means ketone can convert to enol form. Ketone can convert to enol form. Once it converts to enol form in presence of base, that enol form can convert to simple aldehyde, and that aldehyde will easily show the test with NH3 twice. So distinguishing fructose and glucose, also they have two different carbonyl, they have carbonyl carbon, different sets. One is having aldehyde, one is having ketone. Distinguishing by a Benedictine solution and silver mirror test is not possible because there is a basic reaction happening, that isomerization reaction happening in fructose, which at the end converts to aldehyde. So carbonyl carbon present at the end will be aldehydic. It will give a positive test for that as well. So distinguishing becomes difficult. But one thing is there, because glucose has the presence of what? Aldehyde in it. Carbonyl carbon is there. Whether that carbonyl carbon is aldehyde or ketone, it depends upon the oxidizing agent as well. So if you are treating this with, fourth one, if you treat this with weak oxidizing agent like bromine water, weak oxidizing agent like bromine water, you will find out this glucose converts to gluconic acid. And what is gluconic acid? It's a simple carboxylic acid derivative. What exactly will be the structure? It will be CHO, CH2OH, 4 times 4 plus 1, 5, CH2OH, that makes it 6. You treat this with bromine water, you will find out it will convert to the carboxylic derivative CHOH 4 times. Technically, it should not be CH2, it should be CHOH. 1, 2, 3, 4 valencies. Yes, not CH2OH, it should be CHOH. Okay? And then here should be CH2OH. So this molecule is a basic derivative, a carboxylic derivative or carboxylic acid itself with multiple OH groups attached to it. This is called as gluconic acid. When you do it to the mannose, mannose is also one of the monosaccharides, you get mannose acid. What you are getting? Mannose acid. Now you are getting gluconic acid which has got carboxylic acid present. So a simple oxidizing agent has been able to convert this particular carbonyl carbon containing group, which we don't know whether it's aldehyde or ketone, to carboxylic acid, indicating that the simple carbonyl carbon present is an aldehyde, because in order for reduction of this to come into play, in order for oxidation of this aldehyde to come into play, you need a very strong oxidizing agents for that. For ketone, if it is ketone, you need strong oxidizing agents for it. Right? Now you can see that also in aldehyde and in carboxylic acid, whether oxidation has occurred or not. You can have a look on this also. If I look on C double bond O and look on H, then it is attached to carbon on the other side. Between these two children, electronegativity difference is almost 0 between these two carbons. Electron shifts, it becomes -2 oxidation state wise, it will be +2 naturally. And hydrogen, when carbon is more electronegative than hydrogen, electron density comes towards carbon. So oxidation state of carbon in the aldehydic part is +1. Now if it is converted to carboxylic acid, C double bond O, then you got OH, right or not? And here you have got some other CH3 group attached. You can here, it is -2, here it is -2, this becomes +4. So +1 to +4, it has lost electrons from the carbon containing aldehyde and converted to what? Carboxylic acid. So it has undergone oxidation, yes. So we need oxidizing agent which will itself undergo reduction. That's what happens here. Ammonical silver AgNH3 to Ag here is broken. Ag will be plus, it will convert to Ag silver and will precipitate. So it will give a positive test for that. Yes, as I said, fructose distinguishing becomes difficult because in fructose also there is isomerization reaction followed by conversion to aldehydes, and that will bring into play the same process that has been carried out by aldehyde here itself. Did you understand it or not? Basic rules these are. These are basic rules of aldehydes and ketones, children, which are already done. Correct. So you are getting gluconic acid from it. There is one more way. If you want to bring into play now and want to see whether there are OH groups. How many OH groups are there? Total 5 OH groups are there. And the reaction of acetic anhydride with the alcohols, you see, you are getting a derivative of acid anhydrides. So when this is treated with, which one? Glucose is treated with, when you are treating this glucose, I will write it here now. When this glucose is treated with acetic anhydride, we are getting a penta derivative of acetic anhydride. What is that penta derivative? It will be CHO aldehyde as such. Then you got C here. Then you have O, C double bond O, single bond CH3. Then you will have H here. How many times it will be there? 4 times. Then again here also CO, C double bond O, single bond CH3. So you are getting a penta derivative of acetic anhydride here, indicating that there is a presence of what? 5 OH groups attached to the system. Right or not? And if you use a very strong oxidizing agent like nitric acid, for the same, if you are using a very strong oxidizing agent like nitric acid, HNO3, we will see that this glucose molecule converts to saccharic acid, because there will be oxidation at 2 ends happening, strong oxidation at 2 ends happening. So we will get COOH, then you will get CHOH. How many times? 4 times. Again COOH, indicating that, what does it indicate? Even then, if this gluconic acid is also treated with the same, you are getting the same product. That means when glucose a strong oxidizing agent, and when you have gluconic acid plus strong oxidizing agent, in both cases you are getting saccharic acid. What are you getting? So you are getting saccharic acid, and what's that? COOH. Then you are getting CHOH 4 times. Then again you are getting COOH. So at 2 ends there will be the reaction of carboxylic acid formation coming into play. So this indicates the presence of OH. How many? 5 OH groups. Indicates the presence of carbonyl carbon in the group on the basis of the reaction that it has shown. Indicates that carbonyl carbon is present in the glucose is formed in the form of aldehyde. So technically now, once we have in this molecule of glucose, we have aldehyde as its primary functional group. It's a hexose, right? Glucose is a hexose because it contains how many carbons? 6. But what's a primary functional group? So it becomes aldohexose, because the primary functional group in the present case for us in glucose is aldose. So glucose is an aldohexose. What's glucose? Aldohexose. So on the basis of these experiments, we were able to find out there are OH groups attached to it. There is a carbonyl carbon which is in the form of aldehyde. Different reactions we have seen here, right? So now we need to see what is the position of those OH groups present in a glucose, which is present in a glucose. How are those OH groups in a glucose present? Means what is the spatial arrangement? What is the spatial arrangement of the atoms present? Okay, children, what is the arrangement of? So we will see. Fisher projections explain this to us in a proper manner. And we know we are drawing a horizontal line in a Fisher projection. Each of the intersection in Fisher projection represents a carbon, a chiral center to be precise enough. Now remember, if in a Fisher projection, the vertical and horizontal lines you are drawing, these are the bonds made with the intersection which is a chiral center for us in the present case. And if you want to draw a ring out of it like Haworth projection, so Fisher and Haworth projections, any group which is present on the right side in Fisher projection will be found down the plane in Haworth projection. So if I want to show the ring structure of glucose, suppose, which I will show you how it is made, if I mention OH on the right, that will mean OH will be down here, down the plane it will be. Am I clear? And naturally, on the left, OH on the right. OH on the left side in Fisher projection mean upwards in Haworth projection. So on the right it's down, and on the right down, on the left it's up. Is it clear? Basic projection, we'll have a discussion on that. Now according to Fisher projection, on the basis of experimental data, that is stereochemistry data it is, experimental data, he found out that, so we will have a general structure first, C, double bond O, then you will have H aldehyde. Then he found second carbon OH is on the right, keep it in mind, H. Third carbon OH is on the left, H. Fourth carbon OH on the right, H. Fifth carbon on the right, and then you have CH2OH. So this is the Fisher projection that has been shown here. So children, according to Fisher projection, you can see that in glucose, when you look on the glucose, the OH which is at position number 2 is on the right, third one is on the left, rest all are on the right. So only the third glucose is on which side? Left side. Where? In glucose. If you draw a ring structure of this now, when you draw the ring structure of this, there will be only one OH group in the glucose which will be present upwards, rest all will be downwards only in glucose. Clear? When you look on the optical activity of this glucose, you will find out there are 4 chiral centers present. This is not a chiral center, so you got one as chiral center, this is second one, this is third one, and this is fourth one. So there are 4 chiral centers. So the total number of stereoisomers available for glucose are equal to 2 raised power n, that is 2 raised power 4. That will mean 16 isomers you are getting from glucose. Get it clear in the head. Now glucose, when you look on the optical activity of glucose, optical activity of this glucose is analyze it, we find out this glucose is optically active and it rotates the plane of polarized light towards right. It rotates the plane of polarized light towards right. So this glucose is active and the optical rotation shown by the glucose is plus. That's why this glucose is also named as dextrose. Means sugar which rotates the plane of polarized light towards right. Dextra rotating. So you can write down D also for that, because it's able to rotate the plane of polarized light towards right. So it is dextro rotating. Glucose is dextro rotating. So plus. Now this is actually a spatial arrangement of OH in glucose as well as optical activity and names. So how do we name these molecules itself? Now you got this one as it is aldohexose. Now this aldohexose is the glucose. Yes, optically active or not. So it's a dextrose. In front of it you will write plus. So it will be plus aldohexose itself. Am I clear? Total number of isomers associated with will be how many? 14. Now understand it very well. Children, these OH groups can be present at varying positions. And if, understand it well, if in a particular molecule, in a particular monosaccharide, there is a difference in the spatial arrangement of OH, difference in the spatial arrangement of OH along many carbon atoms, we call those as epimers, except carbon 1. That we will show in the ring structure, so that till that time you won't understand it out. Epimers are technically isomers which are distereomers because they are non-superimposable, non-mirror images. Suppose I'll give an example. We have 3 epimers of glucose, understand it. Epimers differ in the relative position of OH around different carbon atoms except carbon number 1, that will be in the ring cycle. So by now I'm not using those words. Get it fixed in your mind. Optically active or not? Yes. Dextrorotatory or not? Yes. How many chiral centers are there? Faster. How many chiral centers are there? 4. Yes. How many chiral centers are there? Now, when you look on, it is epimers. They differ in the relative position of which groups? OH groups around carbon number 1. So try to draw how many arrangements are possible. Try to draw how many arrangements are possible. Do it fast. Okay. So first one that we can draw for it, children, will be, I will draw directly Fisher projection, intersection lines I will draw directly. So I will draw intersection lines now. So this is our aldehyde group. Now, carbon number 2, then carbon number 3, carbon number 4, carbon number 5, and then at the end you have CH2OH. Say if OH is here and OH is here, rest are there, OH and OH. Then you got H here, you got H here, you got H here, you got H here. This is called as mannose. What is this called as? Mannose. Now here if you try to overlap these, you won't be able to do that because this is on the right, this is on the left. So they are not enantiomers, they are distereomers, non-superimposable, non-mirror images. They are non-superimposable, non-mirror images. Yes. And one more that is possible with this is mannose. One more that is possible with respect to this is, can you draw it? That will be our galactose. So again we have C, double bond O, then you have H, then look here. You have OH at usual position. Here OH is here. Here OH is here. So 2, 3, 4. As usual, OH will be here. And then you got CH2OH. This is galactose. Again, these two are non-superimposable, non-mirror image. These are different isomers that you will get from glucose actually. Technically, distereomer that you will get from glucose. Now you have seen here, children, glucose is optically active. Dextrorotatory. Naturally occurring glucose that we have, D-glucose that we have available is, in this case, this is glucose. What is this? Mannose. This is. So they are differing in the relative position of many carbon atoms. So if there is difference in the relative position of the carbon atoms differently, then we call such. So epimerization, look here. When you look on the names here, epimerization along carbon 2 and carbon 3 and 4. Epimerization along carbon number 3 and carbon 4 will give you what? Galactose. In glucose, epimerization along carbon number 2 and carbon number 3 will give you mannose. Am I clear here? Now all the monosaccharides that we have seen here, children, whatever the monosaccharide structure you will draw, they are all reducing sugars. The reason is that they have the aldehyde carbon which is free. Not only this, even if ketone is present, even if you have ketone, I told you, even if you have ketone, it will also be able to show the reaction because in the open chain structure of carbohydrates, monosaccharides, you will have a free carbonyl carbon and reduction will definitely come into play. In the so all monosaccharides, whichever you take into consideration, are reducing sugars. Aldehyde carbon is free, it can be converted to C double bond O, OH. Strong oxidizing agents and weak oxidizing agents will bring two different types of reactions. One is salt of carboxylate ion will be produced and one will produce carboxylic acid. Am I clear here? Oh, clear? Right. Now in this case, they will be able to reduce the failing solution or band solution and color changes will come into play. Cu2 plus in band solution, what happens? Cu2 plus converts to Cu plus, so color change comes into play. In ammonical silver test, what happens? AgNH3 twice plus converts to Ag and it is found out in the form of precipitate. You will find out a silver depositing on the inside of the S2 during the positive test. We will have one class of discussion with respect to Tollens reagent and failing solutions and how aldehydes, how in carbohydrates positive and negative tests are given and what are the distinguishing factors. We'll have a discussion on that itself. But by now we are trying to understand the basic criteria here. Right. One more name additionally that you can add to it, children, is this glucose molecule I am talking about. It will be D plus aldohexose, or you can write down D plus glucose. This D is different from the D which we are using. Now understand this one also. I'll keep the glucose as such. And I'm going to remove this epimers. So epimers along any other carbon atom, when there is difference in the relative position of any other carbon atom except carbon number 1. That carbon number 1 I am going to mention in some time. In an open structure and in closed structure, there is a difference between epimers and anomers. Ring cyclization, anomers are epimers. Look here, I'll define anomers. They differ in the relative position of OH, along only carbon number 1. Epimers differ in the relative position of OH along all carbons except carbon number 1. Now this is important because when you look on the structures of the glucose, when you look on the structures of monosaccharides, they will not be found in the open form in the nature existing at all. Yes, some percentage of those is found in the open form, but there is always an equilibrium existing between closed and open forms, and the percentage of closed form is 99%, 99.9 to be precise, and there is only a very minute amount of open forms available to you. Thus, when you look in the relative position of OH in a cyclic structure, and if the cyclic structure has got difference in a cyclic structure, if there is difference in the relative positions of OH along carbon number 1, the two isomers will be called as anomers. And if they differ, even in closed structure, if that, because I said 99.9% of the population of these carbohydrates is found in a closed structure. If the difference is in the relative position of OH along any other carbon atom, so except carbon 1, if it is like C2 or C3 or C4, difference is there, we call those as epimers. So technically we can say that anomers or special anomers are special epimers along carbon 1. That's it, in a cyclic structure. Try to understand this one. On the basis of what we are classifying the D isomer and L. Remember, this is on the basis of configuration around a particular chiral center. This D and L is classified on the basis of configuration, on the basis of arrangement. It has nothing to do with optical activity. Means where is exactly the OH group present around a particular chiral center. That chiral center we also call a stereo center. So around a particular stereo center, how exactly is the arrangement? How exactly is OH present? So we have D and L. The name of D and L is actually substituted and derived and related to the terms of D-glyceraldehyde. That is our base. So with respect to this base, if the OH is present on the chiral center, in the same way, the way it is present in D-glyceraldehyde, we call that as D-glucose or D-mannose or D-galactose. If it is found as L-glyceraldehyde, then it will be in the form of L. I will tell you the glyceraldehyde structure first of all. So glyceraldehyde is C double bond O. It's a basic tri-OS H. Then you got, this is a stereo center for us. You have OH here, you have H here. Then you got CH2OH. So this is also named the D plus glyceraldehyde. Now when you look on this stereo center, this is the only stereo center in the glyceraldehyde. OH is present on the right. When OH is present on the right, the term D is used for it. And if you have C double bond OH, then this is again the stereo center for us. OH is on the left, CH2OH, and naturally, keep it in mind, it becomes L plus glyceraldehyde. Now have a look on this carefully. It is L, but naturally occurring, which is L form, is levorotatory. Luckily, it rotates the plane of polarized light towards what? Left. But this L has nothing to do with it. Because we can have structures in which, understand it, in which we can have, say, fructose is levorotatory. What is fructose? Levorotatory. So we can have fructose in the form of D minus fructose. D. It has nothing to do with dextrorotation. So it is levorotatory actually. And it is L here, but according to experimentation, its optical activity is also levorotatory. And when you represent optical activity, it's equal to alpha. Bracket. Here you mention the temperature, and here you mention the wavelength, where absorption is happening, where you are calculating in a polarimeter, where you are calculating optical activity. So this D and L, capital D and capital L, has nothing to do with optical activity. Capital D can be negative, means levorotatory, and capital L can be dextrorotatory. So we can have a substance which is L, but at the same time it can be plus. We have a substance which can be D, at the same time it can be minus. But we can also have substances which are L, which are levorotatory, and which are D, which are dextrorotatory. But it has nothing to do with optical activity. Optical activity is determined by small d, small l, or plus and minus. This is with respect to a particular stereo center where exactly OH groups are present. Here OH is on the right, it's called as D form. OH on the left is called as L form. Similar way, many other monosaccharides will have these types of D and L forms available. So different number of stereoisomers will keep on getting. Clear or not? Looking on this glucose, children. Now sir, there are 4 chiral centers. Now you are talking about which particular chiral center we should take. There are 2 ways to represent it. One, when I talk about which chiral center, I am talking about chiral center which is at the lowest position in Fisher projection. So chiral center at the lowest position in the Fisher projection is this is carbon number 2, 3, 4 and 5. That is carbon number 5 for us, right? So in general language, if you want to say, you should say like this: the chiral centers, I said particular chiral center. So this is that particular chiral center which is farthest from the primary functional group. Farthest from the primary functional group. Have a look on the relative position of OH around that chiral center. If it is matching with D-glyceraldehyde, it is a D form of glucose. If it is matching with L-glyceraldehyde, it will be L form. Clear or not? Now have a look here. If I forget about this part of the glucose, I think I just consider this part of glucose is not available to me. So when you look on this, it is glyceraldehyde only, right? Have a look. In glyceraldehyde, OH is on the right. Here also OH is on the right, in the farthest chiral center. So this becomes our D plus glucose. It becomes D plus glucose. So glucose is dextro or levorotatory. It is dextrorotatory. Can we have it as L form also? Yes, indeed. Why not? We can have L form also. And in L form, this is CHO 2, 3, 4, 5. OH will be on the left side. Now, when you take these two up and try to superimpose, they will be non-superimposable mirror images of each other, right or not? Non-superimposable mirror images, or correct or not? OH is far, here also OH will be far only. OH is here, here OH will be here. When you draw the mirror image of it, OH here, here, H here, here. So when you put the two, so they will be non-superimposable mirror image of each other. Clear or not? Am I clear with the basic postulate here, with the diagrammatic analysis of this? Epimers understood, anomers understood, alpha, beta understood. Clear or not? In our next discussion, children, means the same discussion which is continuing on, we will have a discussion on ring cyclization. How do we assess that the structures are not found in the open structure, rather they are found in the closed structure? For that, certain experiments were to be done. Like reaction by this, if we consider this an open structure, reaction with Schiff's base and hydrogen sulfate, sodium hydrogen sulfate, there was no addition reaction between this open structure. If aldehyde was free, then it should have shown the reaction, the pentaacetate derivative I am talking about. Pentaacetate derivative should have shown reaction with Schiff's base or sodium hydrogen sulfate and resulted in the formation of addition products. But that didn't happen, indicating that there is a presence of aldehyde group, no doubt, but that aldehyde group is not accessible and it's not in the free form. Oh yes, leading to the speculation that these structures are not always found in the open structures, rather they may close and they have closed structures also. So that was further elucidated by the concept of mutarotation. What exactly happened? When you look on the glucose, and you have two forms of glucose in closed form, alpha and beta glucose. So if you take pure alpha, you should expect its optical rotation to remain same, because when you look on alpha glucose, I'll distinguish it after some time, optical rotation is almost plus 112 degrees, and when you look on beta glucose, its optical rotation is almost plus 18 degrees. So if you have pure alpha form or pure beta form, its optical rotation should remain same. But when you keep a solution of these two for 1 hour standing and keep it as such, leave it as such, you find out that optical rotation alters. That is, if you had alpha form, it was 112, it decreases and optical rotation becomes 52 degrees. And if it was 18 degrees for beta form, optical rotation increases to 52 degrees. So there is a spontaneous change in the optical activity of a substance. Spontaneous change in the optical activity with the passage of time is called as mutarotation. And it was formulated out. That is only possible when there is ring opening and a new hemiacetal formation comes into play, or which leads to, or which may or may not lead to inversion. As a result of that, the relative position of OH with respect to that particular carbon which has undergone ring cyclization alters, thus two different isomeric forms are obtained. So these experimental investigations, when it came in front, so they were in a position to formulate out that these monosaccharides do not always remain in open structure, rather in the closed structure formation. So because optical activity is also altered. Change in the net optical activity of a substance spontaneously with the passage of time, we call that as mutarotation. So alpha from 112 it decreased to 52. For beta from 18 degrees it increased to 52. So there is an equilibrium optical activity coming into play. This change can only come into play when stereo centers are also changing. When there will be alteration in the interaction with optical centers, yes or no. As a result of that, we will have they formulate it out that closed structures are coming to play. How those closed structures come into play in these molecules, we'll have a look on discussion of that. And before that, we have to look on the structure of fructose as well. What exactly will be the structure of fructose now? Is it clear, children? Or clear or not? Keep this thing in mind, the structure of glucose and different of its epimers and anomers will bring into ring cyclization for this also into play now. Clear? Have a look. Cyclic structures, children, are mentioned by Haworth projection. Okay. Okay, now fructose, again molecular formula is same. It's a functional isomer of glucose. Structure goes like this. Formula is, so for fructose, so CH2OH are directly mentioned down now. It is CH2OH for us. What do you have here? C double bond O, because this is a ketone. Ketone derivative here, then you have OH here, then you have OH here, then you got as usual OH here. So this is our fructose. Keep it in mind, fructose is levorotatory, so it is minus. Look on the relative position of the farthest chiral center. So it is not a chiral center now. Farthest chiral center will start from here, right? Okay, it will be chiral center number 1, number 2, number 3. This is chiral center. Where is OH on the right? So it will be D minus fructose, right? That's also aldohexose or ketohexose now. Ketohexose, it should be very easy. It matches with D-glyceraldehyde. So it will have it as L isomer also. OH will be on which side? Capital L. OH will be on which side? Left. But remember that CH2OH, C double bond O. OH on this side, right? Rest of the things will be same. This is which one? L. But optical rotation again remains the same. Minus. D minus. So nothing to do with optical activity here. L minus. Ketohexose. This is fructose. Correct or not? Or am I clear or not? As I said, there is a primary functional group in the form of ketone, but in Benedict solution or in Tollens reagent test, which are actually distinguishing factors between aldehydes and ketones, this fructose cannot be distinguished. I'm not talking about ketones, I'm talking about fructose. Fructose cannot be distinguished because there is enolization of this fructose coming to play, which leads towards the end to the aldehyde formation and reduction process comes into play. So this is the basic formula and basic structure of which one? Which one? Fructose. And you can see that in fructose how many chiral centers are there? 1, 2, 3. Total number of stereoisomers will be 2 raised power n, 2 raised power 3, that is 8. So how many are available for glucose? 16. And how many are available for fructose? It's 8. So fructose is a functional isomer of glucose. Fructose is a functional isomer of glucose. Now, we will further classify these into analysis with respect to glucose and fructose. And these are our fundamental students for the discussion that we are going to do ahead. Am I clear with the postulate here? Excellent. Did you understand the basic formulations here for everything here, children? Everyone? Good. Small bit of clearance with respect to this fructose we can give itself as well. What is that? It becomes one of the important functional attachments. Fructose, functional attachments for disaccharide sucrose, which is a non-reducing disaccharide. There in the discussion of it is bonding, we'll understand it. But here you can see that you got free carbonyl carbon again here present. So as I mentioned out, all monosaccharides are reducing, so they will give a positive test for Taulinus test. Taulinus test will be given, positive test will be given for it. Then when you look on Benedictus solution, I said actually Fehling or Benedictus solution should be a distinguishing factor. But with respect to fructose, it doesn't work. I said I'll take one class and discuss the interactions and reactions of Benedictus Fehling solutions and Taulinus reagent with respect to aldehydes and ketones. Clear or not? We'll give one class itself on the tests of this, right? What exactly is the reaction happening? It's quite simple, and if you have done it in aldehydes and ketones very well, that's far better. Then my language would be understood by all of you very properly. Good. Now, what we learned so far is deconfiguration L, plus and minus, aldohexoses and others. Now, when ring cyclization occurs, the naming will further change. When the cyclization will occur, the naming will further change. Clear or not? Because once the cyclization occurs, there are multiple possibilities of cyclization. Either, suppose if it is fructose and if it is glucose, C double bond O, there is H. I'll directly draw the projections now. And you have CH2OH here. Direct projections I have done. Hydrogens I am not mentioning out here. For the formation of hemiacetals or hemiketals, we will have this primary aldehydic carbon, which is present with us. It can combine with the stereocenter, or it can combine with C, a stereocenter which is, if it combines with stereocenter first, then the ring size will be extremely small, serious repulsion will be there according to Baer-Strand theory. Baer-Strand theory. And that ring will not be stabilized. And if it makes a ring with the 6th carbon atom itself, the ring will be too big and entropical considerations will come into play that will unstabilize the whole structure. It has been found out when ring cyclization occurs, it occurs between the primary functional group and the stereocenter farthest. It can occur, not it can occur, it can occur between carbon and any of the stereocenter. But in case of glucose and fructose, it's found that this stereocenter, that is ketone or aldehyde in case of glucose, is ring cyclizing with a stereocenter on the basis of which D and L configuration of those two monosaccharides has been discussed, So it can combine here also. Now due to this, when the ring cyclization occur, there will be two CH2 groups going out of plane. And in case of aldehyde, there will be only one CH2OH group going out. And representation wise, the carbon which is directly attached to the functional carbon, we call that as primary carbon itself, right or not? Like I said, in case of aldehyde, there is one primary alcohol, primary OH group. How did we mention it out? Because we can convert those on the basis of strong oxidizing agents. What has happened is glucose was converted to saccharic acid and gluconic acid was also converted to what? Saccharic acid, indicating the presence of a primary OH group. Now this is called as alpha, this is beta, this is gamma, this is delta, this is eta, so on and so forth. These are different carbons, but this is not chiral center for us, so we'll mention down these carbons. So when ring cyclize, so these should be named alpha, beta, gamma, delta. So these are the number of carbons, so carbon naming is here. So when the ring cyclization will come into play, it occurs with the stereocenter farthest away in glucose and fructose, which is stabilizing for the two. Rather than making a ring cycle of bigger size or smaller size, stability comes into play with the stereocenter, which is farthest from the functional carbon for us, correct? So in our next discussion, we'll start a discussion on the ring cyclization and one more different name that now comes into play for these, and there you will understand what is mean by, what is a clear-cut difference between anomers and epimers. Am I clear? Right. Thank you, children.